Okay, recording is in progress. I'm just going to turn the volume up. Okay, just checking. Are you able to hear me online there? Hannah Rivka, can you hear me? And okay, hopefully yes. Okay, so welcome to the ladies' Parsha Shiur, Parsha's Kedoshim. Kedoshim being this year, as we mentioned last week, it is separate to the previous Parsha Acharei, which is usually together, and Kedoshim is really full of juicy, inspiring, unbelievable things. It's got some of the really most profound aspects of the Torah, certain mitzvahs. The mitzvah of Ahavas Yisrael speaks about, the mitzvah, and various mitzvahs between man and his fellow, do's and don'ts, and so we're going to have a very good discussion. In many ways, this is the heart of the Torah, shall we say? And the very fact that we are starting off the parsha with the name Kedoshim tells us that Rashi actually says that this parsha, these portions of the Torah were spoken about in what is known as Hakhel, meaning that it was said in front of all the Jewish people, as opposed to privately or within a group of a few people. These parsha were felt to be so important that it was said in front of the whole Jewish people. That's Hakhel, yes, and it's pointed out that when you get the Jewish people together en masse, the first thing you need to tell everybody is, guess what? Kedoshim Haim, that they are holy. The Jewish people are holy. Some people like to get everybody together, and they like to give what was known as a Mussar drosha. You know, a Mussar drosha meaning how do you translate Mussar drosha? You're giving a bit of a rebuking session, you see. And really, no, the first thing you have to do is to remind people that we are holy, that the Jewish people are holy, and then you can demand things from them and encourage them in a much better way and far more effective way. So now we're going to discuss here. One of the things I'd like to discuss is now the verse is where 19:15, chapter 19, verse 15. Okay, on page 764, 765 in your Gutnik Chumash. And the mitzvah, or any Chumash, whichever chapter is, whichever page it is, chapter 19, verse 15. So the first thing it says is, Lo yisasu ovel b'mishpat, you shall not make an ovel, you shall not corrupt the judgment. You do, how does he translate it? Perversion, there you go, perversion of justice, okay? Lo yisisop p'nei dol, do not treat with more respect, shall we say, than necessary, p'nei dol, the face of a poor person, and do not over respect, is the implication, the face of a great man. But Rashi points out over here that obviously sometimes a person who's poor, you sort of take pity on them, and you think, they need more. You need to treat them differently. You need to treat them better. You need to treat them with kid gloves, and you need to be nicer and kind to them. Now that is, when it comes to justice, that's totally out of order. That's out of place. Of course, we are supposed to, generally speaking, be kind to people, and we're supposed to help poor people, and give to poor people, and you have to speak nicely to them, etc., etc. There's no question about that. But in a case of justice, if there is a legal battle, if there is a court case, one cannot be seen to be favoring one side over the other, for whatever reason. Whether the person is a poor person, and you have a natural sense of wanting to be kind and merciful on him, or whether the person's a rich person, okay, or a great person, right? You might think, oh, he's a big shot. I can't do anything. I can't say anything negative to him, right? We have to overcompensate in a sense, yeah, and be right. Both of those attitudes are wrong. It's interesting. There's a judge we were looking at You see, there's a certain Judge Ciprio in the States, have videos. And he's this nice, kind judge who does, he's not very strict. But, sometimes you think maybe he's going, but at the end of the day, judgment, you can always temper judgment with kindness. But at the end of the day, you can't favor somebody because of their circumstances. Hello, good morning. You can't favor somebody because of their circumstances. You must treat them objectively and honestly. Yeah.
So what makes a man a great man?
A great man. Usually what makes a great man is that he has a very big house, or he sits on a committee, or he's part of the government.
Yeah.
He's very wealthy, or he's powerful, or both.
He's got no beard.
People, in other words, he could be an objectively a great man. He's a big philanthropist. Yes. It could be he's a great, I don't know what, a Johnny Depp, a great Hollywood celebrity. He might just be a senator, yes, or a prime minister, or just a very, very wealthy person. So these people, there's greatness in many ways, yes. But we say, look, we don't care about your greatness. The law is the law, yes. And this is one of the things people do feel sometimes, that people who are rich and powerful, there's one set of laws for the ordinary people, and for the people who can afford the legal representation to get away with it, there's another. Okay, this is one of the frequent complaints about justice systems wherever they are. People get away, literally, with murder sometimes, right? Because they can afford to. Okay, so that's why you have the what's the picture of the woman holding with the scales, and what is she's blindfolded?
Yeah.
Why is this blindfolded? Why is she blindfolded?
Shouldn't get upset at what she weighs.
Justice is blind. Justice is blind. You see, that justice is blind because it's blind to the circumstances of individuals that are coming to the court case. You want to have mitigating circumstances, which we're going to discuss in a minute. That's fine, but it has to be blind to the people and their personalities and their particular circumstance they're coming from. Right? We cannot have a built-in prejudice towards somebody because either they're poor or they're great. We're talking about Jews.
Oh, right.
We're talking about Jewish justice.
Right.
We're not talking about non-Jewish. We're talking about this, the Torah. We're talking about Jewish justice within Jewish courts. One would hope that is the case in a non-Jewish court, that they've learned the lesson also. And I think that is the point. I do believe that is the blind justice is because the non-Jewish people also believe that you have to not favor. You're not allowed to favor any one of the litigants because of their personal circumstances. You can't, right? Yeah. Is that clear? Yeah. That's not actually what I wanted to discuss in detail. What I wanted to discuss was the last part of the verse, where we haven't said that yet, but it says, "Tzedek tishpot amitecha." In justice or righteousness should you judge your fellow. Now, you could say that that's a summary, page 764, is a summary of what we just said. Yeah? It's a summary. In other words, don't favor anybody. You have to judge them in pure and unadulterated justice.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, but Rashi says something else. Rashi says, the very last line, again, I'm sorry that we don't have that the Rashi is not with the kudas and the square.
They're doing one now.
Are they?
Yeah, my new future grandson-in-law.
Yeah.
Rabbi,
Is what?
They're doing a Rashi with translation according to
With block script and with
according to the Rebbe's thing. I wonder. I should ask. I said your new son-in-law about whether he can do the Rashi block as well.
And with whatchamacallit. And with Nakudas as well, with dots, and with
the art scroll already done.
vowel lines.
The art scroll already.
Yes, but they also yes.
But he's doing the translation according to the sequence.
Very good. Well, that's already the good. Right, that's
the translation of Rashi.
Yeah. So he says like this: the last word on the first column, But Tzedek Tishbet it says Kamash Mo'o. That's its simple meaning, right? In other words, what we just said, you have to judge somebody, right? Dover Acher, Rashi says another thing. Hevedon as Chavercha Lekafskus. This is telling you something else. It's actually not this. I'm sorry?
Never mind.
You're not actually discussing, we're not discussing here a court case here. The Torah is telling you something else. That when it comes to judging your fellow, you should judge him in the scale of merit. Exactly. Judge him favorably in the scale of merit. Now, I have to confess, I don't know why we have to say this. In other words, I'm not sure why. I'm not sure what's wrong with the first interpretation. The first interpretation says, judge people honestly, judge people not unfavorably, judge people objectively.
Yes.
Hello, good morning. Judge people favorably. Now, why Rashi has to say Dover Acher? You know, another thing. Usually when he says Dover Acher, there's a problem with the first interpretation. However, I can't tell you what that problem is. Because to me it seems quite normal, but Tzedek, what is wrong with that?
I'll tell you what.
Maybe it's superfluous. Maybe because you don't need to say that. If you're saying already that you're not allowed to honor a poor person, and you're not allowed to honor a rich person, you have to be blind. Justice has to be blind. So maybe that is obvious then that you have to judge in righteousness. So maybe it's superfluous for that reason. You don't need to say it again. And maybe that's why Dover Acher, Rashi's saying, you know what, it's coming to teach you something else.
Yes, that's what I think.
Okay.
I think that when you see somebody falling asleep in your shoes, don't think they're bored. Just think, oh, poor thing, she was up all night. Or just think favorably, which you can't do when you're judging a case.
No, we're not trying to.
Late,
wait a second, we're not discussing the actual thing. We're going to get to that.
No, but that's why I think it's a different kind of judgment. You shouldn't be judging people anyway, but you do.
No. But my question was, why can't you just say we are talking about justice? We're talking about
court
court case.
About your thinking.
We're talking about court cases. Look at the context. Lo yisasu ovav mishvat.
Where are we?
Do not on page 764, 765. It says clearly, verse 15. Do not do perversion of justice.
So
okay, we're talking about court cases, of course. Yes, do not honor a poor person.
Oh, right. Sorry.
In court. Do not give favorable treatment to a godel, to a rich person, to a powerful person in court. Don't pervert the course of justice. So we are talking about court cases here.
Sorry.
We're not talking. That's the whole question. That's why I was asking. So maybe the fact that it says at the end, but you should judge your fellow, right? Is to tell you why is it? I mean, it seems to be superfluous because it's already said, do not pervert the course of justice.
Right.
So obviously, if you're not supposed to pervert justice, then your justice will be your justice will be proper, will be tzedek, will be righteous. Yeah. So maybe that's why Rashi says, no, this is not a repetition. It's coming to tell you something completely different. And it's nothing to do with court cases.
But it's not telling us what.
It is. It tells you to judge a person favorably.
It's the same thing.
No, it's not the same thing. Not the same thing.
Totally
different thing.
You know?
No. Here's the difference. In a court case, what we're talking about, if there's a court case, we're saying we're not allowed to give any favorable treatment to either if they're very poor or they're very rich or they're very great. That's one thing. Then when you're saying that when it comes to seeing that somebody else, one of your friends or somebody anywhere, you go through life, you see people doing silly things, stupid things, right? Judge them in the scale of merit. It's not about a court case here. It's about a mental and emotional feeling in your heart.
Yeah.
How do you judge that other person? In your heart. It's like we're not talking about court cases altogether. The first part of the verse is court cases, is justice. The last part of the verse is your own way of how you judge others. Are you going to judge them favorably or not? So the Torah says, judge them favorably. Here, we're not talking about court cases. We're talking about our personal, interpersonal relationships. Right? Now, here comes, of course, the fascinating question. when Rashi says to judge somebody in the scale of merit, now he says lekaf schus. Now schus in Hebrew means a merit. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's a good thing. Schus is a good thing, isn't it? You tell somebody has a schus. Oh, he did something. He did this well, he did that. He's got a schus. It's like a merit, a mitzvah, right? Now, it's a little bit hard to understand here that if you see somebody and you see somebody do something bad and you know it's wrong, it's kind of objectively naughty with a capital N. Yes. Now, we know that we are supposed to have mitigating circumstances. And even in court cases, of course, we have mitigating circumstances. So you can understand that in your own mind, you could think about things, or even in court case, you could say, look, I'm not going to judge him too harshly because there's a mitigating circumstance. Yeah, a mitigating, you make things like, he was brought up this way, he had this problem, he had a hard life, blah, 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 right, also. But mitigating is different from saying that you have to judge him l'chaf schus, that actually what he's doing is a schus, is a mitzvah, is a good thing, is a meritorious thing. How is that possible? How is that? How could you say that what somebody did wrong, it suddenly becomes a merit? It's not a merit. He did do something wrong, right? So what's going on here? What is Rashi saying? How could you judge somebody when you see somebody doing something wrong and suddenly turn their naughty thing that they did into a merit? Now, if a person does tshuva themselves, yes, fine. Person does tshuva, we know that when a person does tshuva, has the fantastic, amazing thing that the sins that you did become merits. That is an amazing miracle itself.
We're talking about a public display of, someone.
Not necessarily public display.
A whole
could be.
A court
could be. No, I don't know if we're talking about
court cases right now.
Court cases.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was a public thing, but most crimes are not done in public.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, just the embarrassment maybe is like.
Yeah, but again, we're not. I think, if I may say, I don't think we're talking about court cases.
Okay.
We're talking about the way we judge other people.
Right.
And what I'm asking is, the question is, if you judge other people, how can you want to judge people in the scale of merit? How can you judge somebody who's done something objectively wrong and bad? How can you judge them in the scale of merit and say, you know what? They stole something and they hurt somebody, they did something bad, they did something, but you know what? It's really a mitzvah. How could a person do that? I mean, emotionally. No, but that's what it looks like. Done. You judge somebody to the schus. That's in the scale of merit. You're giving the schus. You're not trying to mitigate. You're actually going from. You're saying that black is white, and white is black. I mean, it's like
looking for the merits that they already had, or.
Well, now you're getting a little bit warm.
Or finding excuses.
Now, Faith, you're getting a little bit warm.
That's it.
What do you say?
Finding excuses.
Finding excuses for them. Oh, they come from.
But it's much more than that, because finding excuses is a bit more like. I mean, that's also warm. You're getting warm, also. But that is also a little bit of just mitigation. It's a bit mitigation. But to turn it over into a mitzvah, that's what they did. That's a bit.
Yeah,
that's still a reach. That's a big ask. That's a big ask.
But when they're driving to the hospital. They're driving to help someone. They're on Hatzalah. You can think of all sorts of reasons.
Actually, funnily enough, that's what this judge Cipro in America. He has lots of videos about him, and there's some chap there who comes and he deals with parking offences, going through traffic lights. This judge in. Somewhere in Pittsburgh or something, I can't remember, somewhere in Detroit, somewhere in the States. And you see these little videos of this chap giving a court case. Yes? They video them. And I remember it's a classic case where this guy walks in, he's an old man, and he's saying, well, you were caught speeding, weren't you? He says, well, yeah. He says, well, I was going to the hospital because I needed my son needed treatment at the hospital. Now, this guy's about 90. Okay, 90. Okay, and his son is ill. He's sick. He's got like cancer or something, and he's a veteran. Okay, and he never did it before, and he's driving his son, and he was speeding. So the judge basically throws it out, and the judge says, I think you're the most amazing thing. You're taking a little kid who's 75 years old, and he's still looking after him, taking him to the hospital to treat him, and he's a veteran. So do you understand? So suddenly the crime becomes a mitzvah.
Yeah,
That's
You
nice.
understand?
I like that.
So
Good muscle.
okay, but that's quite it's quite a rare situation. But the fact is, most of us don't see, things are not always that way, and sometimes people do things without real justification, and yet we are still required to turn it into a zchus. Now, here's where the Rebbe comes and changes that. In order to answer this question, it says really what we're doing is, it's actually that we shouldn't translate it the way we normally translate it. And here we have a novel way of understanding judging a fellow in the kashus, judging a fellow in the scale of merit. So the Rebbe says like this. What does it mean? There's actually, when somebody does something wrong, does something bad, does a sin, does an avera, he has a certain schus. Now, schus, that doesn't mean in the classic sense, meaning a merit. There's no merit here when he does something wrong. However, what he does have are powers. The very fact that Hashem... No. The very fact that Hashem presents us with the opportunity of doing something wrong, yes, an avera. The very fact that God gives us the ability to sin, yes, means he also gives us the power, the ability to overcome the sin. He gives that ability. Now, what if the person sins and they don't use their powers to overcome the sin? Well, they've, quote unquote, they failed, haven't they? They failed the test, right? Right or wrong? Right? I just want to get the this is what just go with me for a minute. This is what the Rebbe is telling us. That when a person, when we sin, Hashem also gives us the power, the ability to overcome the sin. Now, sometimes we don't utilize that ability to overcome the sin. Yes? They said Esau was why did Yitzchak want to bless Esau, rather than Jacob, Yaakov? Yaakov was a nice guy. Esau was a very naughty boy. You don't think Yitzchak knew that? Yitzchak did know that. But he thought that he could give him, if you give him the ability, he gives him the brachas, give him the blessings, that will help him overcome his Yetzer Hara. Yes? We all have powers from Hashem to overcome our Yetzer Hara. Unfortunately, we don't always utilize those powers, and we fail. Now, so here's the point. If you criticize somebody for failing to do what they did, then nothing really happens. Nothing changes. It's just more of the same happens. But if you try and bring out the positivity and you think, you try and reveal, if you like. So you reveal the positivity in that person, who they are, the great powers that they have within them, the ability to overcome. That actually, the very fact that you are doing that, you're revealing, and that's the expression of the word don. Don means judge. Normally, you judge somebody on the scale of merit, but here the Rebbe uses it don meaning if you reveal that a person has greatness within them. Okay, then guess what? If you reveal, and they feel that greatness within them, then next time, they will be able to overcome the test, because they will have the powers revealed within them.
Like we're encouraging somebody.
You're encouraging. You ever heard the expression, give a dog a good name?
Yeah.
Yeah? You know that expression? You never heard that expression? So, okay, let me explain. Give a dog a good name.
The dog is
A dog, well, we all know what a dog is. Right? Now, there are some very cute, nice, sweet, lovely dogs. But quite often, dogs are a bit, a dog's a dog. they can be vicious, they can be loud, they can be nasty, right? So if you have a person who is a bit like a dog, if you give him a good name, okay, when does it give him a good name? It means you tell him, oh, you're such a great guy. You start praising him. You start telling him what a good guy he is. Guess what? He starts to feel that he needs to live up to the reputation that you are giving him.
But can you do all this, especially with repeat offenders? Can you do this with setting boundaries and not going back to square one with these people?
Well, I think that the problem is, if they keep doing it again, then the problem is that one needs to work harder to reveal the forces or the ability. What is happening is that the fact that they keep doing it again means that the powers within them to overcome the test have not been revealed again. So guess what? The more one criticizes the negative behavior, the criticism itself magnifies the evil, the negativity, and makes it even more difficult for the person to overcome. Yes? It's like we say later on. We said that you're not allowed, the very next verse, which speaks about Lashon Hara. Yeah? Right? So you're not to do Lashon Hara. Now, it says that Lashon Hara kills 3 people. You've heard of this expression? Kills 3 people. The one who says it, the one who listens,
and the one
about who is being spoken. So the question you ask is, wait a minute. The question is, look, the guy who said the Lashon Hara, okay, you understand, he's shooting himself in the foot, or in the head, because he's saying something bad about the other person. Even if it's true, you're not allowed to do that, right? Now the one who listens, that's also terrible, because he's the market for the Lashon Hara. If the guy would say, I'm not listening, then if everybody said I'm not listening, then the person who spoke would have nowhere to go. Yes? So when he listens, he's bit the come on. Oh, really? Oh, yeah, really? Oh, really? So those 2, you understand that they're bad. But what about the third guy? He's not even there. He didn't do anything, and yet says, kill him. Why is it killing him? Oh, you know what the Rebbe says? Amazing thing. Because when you speak badly about somebody, you make them worse. You're not just reporting something that happened. The talking about it reveals more in the world. When you speak, you're revealing. So when you speak words of Torah, you're revealing Torah in the world. You give out, you refine the atmosphere. You refine the world. You help the world. When you speak badly about people, you're making those people worse.
As it goes in the world.
Yeah, it becomes magnified. So you're killing them as well. The person, when you speak badly about them, you're killing them too. You don't think so, but you're affecting them. So how you talk about somebody, how you think about somebody, okay, can affect how they behave, right? So here we're going back to our case, because it relates quite nicely. That when you speak and you think very positive about this person, and like you and you find things about them, and you reveal within them the goodness, the positiveness, the greatness of that person, then guess what? They feel more empowered. They feel so much better about themselves that the next time they will overcome the test and they won't do the stupid thing, and they will become better people, and they will win. So that's when it says to judge the other person in the scale of merit, means to talk about and to reveal the goodness and the greatness in the other person, which is a very profound thought. It's not just about pretending what he's doing is a mitzvah, because it's not. But at least to try and remember that this person has the greatness and the ability to overcome it. This is what I mean. I'm just thinking of one example here. Somebody was there was a Kohen, I think, somewhere, and he was going to marry somebody who was, he's not allowed to marry. Whatever it was, a divorcee or something like that. He was going to marry somebody, what he said, and somebody convinced him to go to the Rabbi. And the Rabbi said, he said, I think this is the case. I'm not sure if I'm mixing up with marrying a non-Jew or whatever. I can't remember. But he said something to the Rebbe said, I envy you. So the Rebbe said, what do you mean I envy you? He said, you have greatness. You have a greatness of being a Kohen. Yes, whatever that I could never get. And you want to squander that. You want to give it away because your children will not be Kohanim anymore. And you are coming after all these generations, after generations. So rather than lay into him, said, you don't have to do that, you can't do that, it's a sin, it's an avera, which of course you could say. Anybody could say that. You're not allowed to marry, it's black and white, you can't do it, you're wrong, it's terrible, don't do it. What's that going to achieve? So the Rebbe put it in a language that empowered the person to feel very good about himself. Yes? And I do remember, with regard to intermarriage, there was such a thing where the Rebbe told people, if you really love the person, you care about the person, which you do, then marrying, it will not be good for you, not good for them, because it's not the right match. Do you understand? So, in other words, not acknowledging and saying, I just read a letter from the Rabbi speaking. Today or tomorrow is the Israel Independence Day.
Was it yesterday?
I don't think it's
because it wasn't convenient for them.
They moved it. Okay, so around this day is Israel Independence Day.
I think it is normally today.
Right.
Normally it's
And
Now-
the Cohens are not back from Israel. Miriam and David.
Now, a lot of people, a lot of the so-called Haredi world has always been perceived as being anti-Zionist.
Yeah.
Okay.
The sun.
Right? Now, Chabad can never be accused of being anti-Israel because the Chabadniks, they fight in the army. The Rebbe supported so much. He tells people to go to Israel, and he's supported so much in what's going on in Israel, educationally, economically, everything. Right? But the Rebbe said something recently, and he said, there's no question that in the War of Independence and everything, it was miraculous. There were miracles. Hashem did miracles, an amazing thing, and Hashem put the many into the hands of the few. Amazing miracles, which is interesting language. I've never seen that from any Haredi rabbi before, for any leader. He said this is miracle. Those are the words used, by the way, in Al Hanissim that we say for Purim and Chanukah. Rabim ba'at ma'atim, yes, many in the hands of the few. But the Rebbe said, yet, unfortunately, some people use the idea of Zionism to, like the Rebbe brings in quite an interesting metaphor. He said, imagine, he says, it says in Tanya, actually, today's Tanya, about a king who goes to, he goes and finds this poor person who's sitting at the back of an alleyway, slobbering, lying around in filth and alcohol and who knows what, and poverty, and he's on the streets. And the king, he knows it's one of his grandchildren who's come on hard times, or even just a stranger, and he brings him back to his house, brings him back to the palace, cleans him up, dresses him in nice clothes, brings him into his, hugs him, kisses him, right? In Tanya, he explains this is the metaphor for the Jewish people and giving it the Torah. Hashem came to us in Egypt, took us out of the filth of Egypt and the slavery of Egypt, and brought us to Mount Sinai, gave us the Torah, made us princes, and Kohen and priests to serve Hashem with the temple Mishkan. So he said, what have some people done? He said, they come, imagine this, if this poor person would come to the king and say, well, thanks very much, but if you don't mind, this is my past. And if you don't mind, I'd like you to leave. Is that all right? Right? So he says, this unfortunately is like in Israel. In other words, that Zionism was originally anti-religious. They wanted to substitute it for a nationalism for Yiddishkeit. So he said it's like this guy, imagine the king being told he has to leave his own palace. Right? Eretz Yisrael, that's where Hashem is. So what people are going to come in, Hashem he's done amazing miracles. He saved you, saved thousands of lives, okay? And now you want to leave. You want him to leave. his own country, his own place, his own palace. Not nice. You understand? But what I get from that letter is that it's also empowering, because when you say that Hashem has done something beautiful, wonderful for you, you realize that there's something great. So you know, it's not like you are bad, you're wrong, you're rotten, but take the goodness that's given to you and do something good with it. You know, so and there was all about that, revealing the goodness in people. Yes, revealing. It's amazing, you know. There's an incredible thing, incredibly positive. You know, it says, you know, people talk about Mashiach, this and the other, and of course Chabad began on Mashiach. The Rebbe, it says once somewhere that Mashiach is going to melamed schus on even Oisaish. He's going to. How are we going to translate that? He's going to judge in a favorable light, even the founder of Christianity.
Oh.
Now, how do you do that? How do you do that? Here's a guy who's responsible for so much death, so much blood is on his hands, and all his followers for the last 2,000 years. So we know that. I don't need to go any further than that. But the Rebbe once said a sikha, an amazing thing. According to Jewish tradition, this man, right? His name was Yeshua he was a student of Rabbi Yehoshua ben Parachia. Yehoshua ben Parachia. Now, interestingly enough, this is actually in Pirkei Avos. Yehoshua ben Parachia was in Pirkei Avos. We mentioned the first chapter of Pirkei Avos. He's part of the chain of tradition. Now, whereas the Christian tradition is that Jesus lived in the time of the Romans, okay, and it was sort of like the first century-ish, in around the Romans, but they were around the first century, right? That is CE, BCE, right? That area. Yehoshua ben Parachia lived actually about 100, 150 years before, when actually the Greeks were more running the show. And the Jews had far more independence. Okay? So there's a chronological difference there that is very significant. Now, according to our tradition, this guy, if it's the same guy, we don't know really, but if it's the same guy who went off and became self-styled God, okay, the Talmud tells us a certain story, which I think, I'm not sure, but I think it may be censored. I'm not sure if it's part of the uncensored Talmud. But what happened was that this chap, as we just said before, he was a student of Yehoshua ben Parachia. Now, they were visiting some inn somewhere, him and his students, including this chap. And they went to this inn, and the woman running the inn was, I don't know what, it was like an inn. I think it was staying overnight or something, right? It was like an inn. So this student said something rude, immodest about the woman, the innkeeper. He made like a joke. That's what the Talmud says. He made a rude, vulgar joke about the woman that was totally inappropriate for a student of his caliber and a student of Rabbi Yehoshua ben Parachia. So what happened was Rabbi Yehoshua, he put him in cherem. He basically excommunicated him. Okay, which is quite dramatic. That's what they used to do in those days. People said, "You can't. What are you going to do? You're going to beat the guy up, and you can't. There was not much else to do. So you assign somebody on that level. You put him in a temporary excommunication.
Does that mean from your group?
Yes, from your group, and of course your whole life was that group. So it was right. So it was a very close knit group of people, right? The rabbi. So you're not welcome in shul anywhere, something like that. Yeah. Now here, of course, people say, "I don't care. There's plenty of other shuls all over the place. Oh, I won't go to shul altogether. You know, I can do what I want." All right. So nowadays, it doesn't mean very much excommunication, because but in those days, it meant a lot more. And people who, if the word got around, that the great Rabbi Shiur ben Parachi put this guy in excommunication, then nobody would probably have anything to do with it, right? Now, the story continues that the whole idea, by the way, of this excommunication was not just a slap on the wrist. It was basically to get the person to try and do tshuva.
So could they take the cherem off?
Yes, it wasn't a permanent thing, right? Now, so here's the story. It continues that this chap, he felt bad afterwards. He said something wrong, did something wrong, and he was put in cherem, excommunication. So he came and asked forgiveness from his Rabbi Shiur ben Parachi. His Rebbe felt at the time that it wasn't really sincere enough, and he refused. He came a second time, and he asked. It's all in the Talmud. I'm not making anything up. And again, the Rebbe thought, no, he's not being sincere. He's not really being sincere. Or I think what he said, he's getting better. I don't see exact, but he refused again. Then, the third time, this guy said, I'm going to go and ask forgiveness one more time. If he doesn't forgive me, I'm off. I'm out of here. I'm going to be, whatever. Don't take any, I'm out of here. Finished. Spiritually. So listen what happens. He comes to ask for forgiveness. Rabbi Shiur ben Parachi was in his house and he was davening. Where was he? He was in the middle of saying Shema. He said Shema. Shema is it's like one of the high points of davening. And you need to concentrate. Yeah, you put your hand on Shema Yisrael, Hashem, right? Right? And a big Rebbe, you got to really seriously, right? So he came in and he knocked on the door, whatever, came in, asking for forgiveness. Rabbi Shiur ben Parachi felt he's in the middle of Shema. Now, he had actually made up his mind to forgive him. But, got a dilemma here. He's in the Shema, the guy's coming in, he can't talk, he can't this, he can't that, right? So what he did was, he made a gesture that meant basically come back, like either a gesture telling him to wait or to come back after he's finished Shema. This guy took it as a rejection. Whatever the gesture was, he took it as a rejection. And as a result of that, he went off, it says he's a stone, he started worshipping a stone, and he became the whole thing that we have been all this time worrying about and suffering from. And here's what the Rebbe said in the Farbrengen, which was, everybody was like, whoa. The Rebbe said like this, he says, imagine, he says, when it comes to Avas Yisrael, to love your fellow Jew, he says, you can be involved in the highest realms of spirituality, and you're a great man, and you're communicating with God. He says, but if another Jew needs you, you have to sacrifice yourself and help that other Jew. And you have to go away from your great spiritual greatness and help that other Jew. And because this great rabbi didn't do that, we're where we are today.
Yeah, but we have like certain parameters of not
And that is what-
interrupting, during
Of course,
Shmoneh or
we know.
Shema.
We know. But
If it's
It
in
depends
danger,
on the
if you see a
severity.
kid about to put a hand on the fire, run.
that's right.
No,
Good
but
point.
I'm wondering if he knew though that his message would have been
How could he know?
miscommunicated.
How could he know?
Yeah.
But the problem is, sometimes these things are good after the event. After the event, you suddenly realize, whoops,
Yeah, I could have. Yeah.
whoops, like
Yeah.
he misinterpreted what I said. So, but it's a good point what you said. If you're davening Shmoneh Esrei communion, you're so close, and it took you such a long time to concentrate, and then you see out the corner of your eye a kid going towards the burner, right, or doing something dangerous. You're gonna, maybe that's why a mother is not obligated so much in davening as a husband, because she's looking after the kids.
gosh.
She sees, right?
Stop your prayer.
You'd stop your prayer and go and stop the kid from getting burnt.
Yes.
And then you'll apologize to Hashem and say, I'm really sorry, Hashem. Right? Remember when the angels came to Abraham? You remember the three angels? Now, it says it was after his bris milah.
Yeah.
Right? It was after his bris milah, and he was Hashem came to visit him. And he was talking with Hashem. And what did he say to Hashem? Hold on a minute. I've got these 3 guys coming out. I need to do some hachnosas orchim. Hachnosas orchim, right? Love, compassion to your fellow is greater. From there we learn is greater than even speaking to Hashem. Right?
It's much harder.
Much harder. Right.
That is like an incredible lesson that you're.
I know.
Like the whole world is, so much of the world revolves around that religion. It's just.
I know. That's what I said was mind blowing at the time when the Rebbe was the Rebbe was Melamed Zchus. He was, as I say, he found a mitigating circumstance in even that guy. Okay, who and I've never heard that before from anybody. I've heard anybody ever said a good word about it, right? Because of how much, right? But here we're just saying that what? At the end of the day, he was a yid who had a problem and he needed to be helped. And he wasn't helped. Okay, we're not going to blame anybody here, but there's something we can learn from it. Something we should learn from it. So, this just all goes back to this idea of the idea of bringing out the positive in people. It's all very good. It's all good and well to castigate and to and to tell somebody off for doing what they've done wrong. Okay, we can all do that. We're all very good at that, aren't we?
Yeah,
we're all very good at that.
I have something that I saved, if I can read. It's very interesting. It's something that the Rebbe said in Yechidus. With each person you encounter, seek not which pulls the 2 of you apart, but that which brings you together.
Right. Yes.
With each person you encounter, seek not which pulls the 2 of you apart, but that which brings you together.
Yeah.
Take the time for somebody,
Yeah, well, of course, and of course, when you do things together, you can overcome greater challenges. Yeah. Okay.
But what amazed me when I heard once that if you're on your way to shul and you're a man and you're obligated to go to shul and it's married, and somebody comes from out of town to your door, don't say, "Oh, sit down a minute, I'm running to Marib." You have to bring them in, make them a coffee, and care about them. And you might have to do it on your own. I thought that's very.
There's a famous story of the Tzemach Tzedek. Yeah. I think the Tzemach Tzedek, where a certain poor person came to him. He needed some money. He needed a loan. Yeah. Okay, and he came to them before davening. So he told me, he says, "Come to him after davening, and I'll give him the loan. I'll give you the loan." Right? He said yes. He didn't say no. He says, "Come to after davening. I've got a davening now." Afterwards, the Tzemach Tzedek felt bad. The Rebbe, the great Rebbe, the 3rd Lubavitcher Rebbe, Menachem Mendel Lubavitch, he felt bad. The guy needed the money now, and I'm telling him to come back in an hour and a half. He needs the money now because the market is now. So he took his talis and he went and he found him, whatever. He found him in the middle of the market and he gave him the money there on the spot and then came back. Mm-hmm. And afterwards, what happened was, it says that in the middle of davening, he saw an apparition of his grandfather, the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad. And then they said from that, he says, by doing a favor for another Jew, you can open the gates of heaven and you see amazing, amazing things, you see. So you see, by helping the fellow Jew, he achieved even more, yeah? So, when people are doing silly things, there's ways of helping them. Here, we're trying to say, reveal within them their innate ability to overcome their own problems. They have it anyway, right? Because God gives them to it. We all have free choice. Mm-hmm. We can all choose to act like angels or like nincompoops. And unfortunately, we sometimes choose, the latter. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that we are forced to repeat the mistake over and over again. We can always do tshuva, right? And helping somebody do tshuva means that you think of them in a positive way and you think of them really actively positively. That brings out the positive aspect of who they are. So that the next time they will overcome the sin. They will overcome temptation. They won't botch up. Yeah? That's a radical it's a radical way. And if people were to do that, if we all did that, wow, the world would be so much better place. Everybody's kind of not condemning anybody. We're all trying to help that another person should overcome their silliness. And we all got silliness. It's just his silliness is not the same as mine. So to me, it looks like, oh, that's really silly. Now, my silliness, right? Well, that's okay because me, always, like you say, finding excuses for our own silliness, for somebody else's silliness. Oh, outrageous, ridiculous. How could they, right? So this is an amazing learning. Okay.
Sorry if I may interrupt.
No, please.
But, I feel that nowadays with justice, it has gone too much the other way, where justice is not being applied when it should be.
Oh,
And,
definitely.
If you bring this idea of being positive and God's and all this, then you forgive altogether the person who...
No. That's why I said right at the beginning.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that.
That when it comes to
You have
court case,
people in high injustice who don't apply.
you're right, and especially that you're right. That unfortunately nowadays the legal system. No, you're right. The legal system has gotten to the point where sometimes the criminal is more valued than the victim. That is the tragedy. That is the. You're right. And the flip side of the coin, and that's why we're talking about justice. Okay, because justice has to be blind. Okay, justice has to be blind, and it's all very. As somebody once said, it's all very well being open-minded. Yes, but as a writer once said, I think his name was Lionel Trilling. Some people are so open-minded that their brains fall out. Right, and unfortunately, that's the situation. Sorry, woke. Yes.
What?
I mean,
Woke. It's a culture that everything is sexual. All traditional. Well,
reality.
Yeah. It is.
Jewish students are afraid to lift their hand up because they get thrown right down. I mean,
Yes.
that's right. Disgusting.
We are living in a world of definite. I mean, upside downs, and and the bad guys do not really get what's coming to them. I mean, look, I mean, this guy, for example, in America, this so-called this actor, this Jussie Smollett. Yes, I don't know if you know this famous case where he faked that he was beaten up by Trump supporters, and they put a noose around his neck and everything.
Black.
He was black and he was gay.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, and he faked the whole thing. He faked it, and they proved it because the police they did a whole investigation. And the police found, and the brothers, the two black guys who he had paid, right? They came forward and they admitted. They said, "Really, he paid us to do it. It was a scam, right?" And this guy, and he was convicted in court. He wanted more money because he wanted to show that he's a poor victim, and therefore that he should. He was in a hit show. Yes, he was a star, but he felt he wasn't getting paid. Right, so he maligned an entire community. It was absolutely disgusting. I can't believe you don't know about this. It was all over the news, even in this country. And what happened at the end of the day? He was found guilty.
Yeah.
Right. First of all, the prosecutor wanted to dismiss it. They dismissed the whole thing without anything, no reason. Oh, he gave some money to charity. They dismissed it. Black prosecutor in Chicago. Just dismissed it. There was an outrage. How could it just dismiss it? He was charged. He was found. The police found he was guilty. And they just dismissed it. So they appointed a special prosecutor who they re-prosecuted again. They brought it to trial. And he was convicted. He was found guilty. And what happened? He got a few months in prison. Finished. A few months. He got fined, and he's out now. Really. I think he could have had 2 or 3 or 4 years in prison. Yeah. But they gave him 6 months. Even though they said he was a nasty piece of work, a liar, a cheat, and he maligned everybody.
Black Lives Matter, scared of
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's now the Supreme Court in America again. Same sort of thing. The Supreme Court in America. You heard what happened yesterday?
No.
2 days ago. Well, Roe versus you see, Anne Bloom, she's up on the news just like me. there is one of the most famous court cases in America was Roe v. Wade in 1973, which prohibited abortion anywhere in the States, right?
That's going on in
Now-
Texas now.
Well, no, what's happening is that they said that the Supreme Court looks like they're going to overturn it.
Yeah.
And they're going to say that abortion is not going to be prohibited.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's not going to be allowed. It's going to be up to the states. It's not going to be forbidden. It's not going to be forbidden.
Texas
But the
has
states will
forbidden,
decide,
yeah.
not the federal,
Supreme
right,
Court,
which
yeah.
allowed anything and everything, right? So now there was a leak document that came out from the Supreme Court in the USA that this is what is likely to happen. So of course the whole idea of leaking that was to make all the woke mob and all the liberals and all the go ballistic, ballistic, and demonstrations now all over the place, protests, demonstrations, riots, the whole thing, right? Because nobody takes the view, what judges say is that's it. You don't argue with it. That's it. What judge says, and even the president of the states didn't say it was a bad thing that they leaked this, which of course was the worst thing.
Yeah.
He didn't say a word. He just said, "Oh, they shouldn't do that. Oh, they shouldn't do that." The president, they're crazy to overturn Roe v. Wade. Anyway, we are at the end of our class. We just try and understand. Thank you very much for listening. And Mirza Hashem, please God, we'll see you next time. May we all merit that we should all be holy, Kedoshim, and merit the holiness of Hashem by meriting to everybody else. We judge everybody in the scale of merit. Hashem will judge all us in the scale of merit. And bring Mashiach now. Thank you.